Alright, so James wants to create some buy and sell signals using the CCI. Alright, so we want to buy signal when the CCI crosses below the negative 100 line, and a sell signal when the CCI crosses above the positive 100. So, all right, let me just refresh my chart template here. All right, let's get the CCI on the chart. So this is going to use, well, there's two ways we can do this. We can do this with a threshold solver or a crossover solver. So Mike kind of touched on the difference between the crossover solver and the comparison solvers, and I'll touch on it again with this particular question. All right, so let's see, we've got CCI on here. All right, let's brighten up. Let me make these 100 and negative 100 a little brighter so they stand out a little more. Okay, there we go. All right, let's get BloodHound open and let's set up our workshop template name. Let's see, today's the 22nd already. Okay, so we got today's template named, and let's get a new logic template started. So all right, so let's take a look at this easier way to do this, a little bit easier. So I'm going to using a threshold solver. And let's name this here. All right. So an indicator like the CCI, right, it has its own scaling here, right? It has its own scaling, totally separate from the instrument scaling, right? And so so indicators like the CCI, you know, when you're using like the 100 level and the negative 100 levels, those you can call those thresholds, right? So James wants a buy signal when the CCI crosses below the negative 100 threshold level, right? So that negative 100 is a threshold level for the buy signal. So that's why we're going to use the threshold here, or that's kind of basically what the threshold is used for. So, all right, so let's see, first step, let's load up our CCI into that solver. Alright, we're just using the standard 14 period, and the CCI only has one plot, so it's already selected for us. Alright, so now step 2 is set up our threshold levels. So what we're going to do is set up 100, and then at the bottom negative 100. So this is important. thresholds have to be in descending order. All right, if you look at the documentation for the threshold solver, it says that the threshold values have to be in descending order. So negative numbers have to be down at the bottom, right? So a very common mistake is someone does something like this, 100 and then negative 100, and has zeros at the bottom. So this will not work because 0 is greater than negative 100. So it's not in descending order anymore. So let's put these in descending order, like so. All right, so that's step 2, and then the third step is to set your outputs. So we want a long output or a long signal when the CCI is less than negative 100, right? And then we want a short signal when the CCI is greater than 100, positive 100. So those are the outputs that we want to set for the long and the short. Okay, so if we look at BloodHound here, right, you notice how BloodHound kind of has this, right, it has an analog look to it, right? It's got this fuzzy logic look to it, much like the CCI. It's basically, it's an inverse of the CCI here. So most people don't want to use the fuzzy logic part of BloodHound. So to get rid of that, what we can do is we can set A and B to 100. So you set A and B to your first threshold level, and then you set D and E to your other threshold level, like so. All right. Just a moment while I take a sip of water, please. So now you'll see there's very clear, distinct output here when the CCI rate crosses the 100 or the negative 100 levels. So, right, you'll also notice that there's a signal when the CCI is above or below those levels the entire time, right? Every bar that's above or below those levels, there's a signal there. So basically the threshold level just tells you whenever your indicator is above or below those threshold values, right? So those aren't, you know, those I guess you wouldn't consider those a distinct buy and sell signal, right? That's just kind of telling you the state that the indicator is in, right? The state that the CCI is above 100 or below 100. So if you want to create kind of distinct signals when the CCI crosses the 100 or crosses the negative 100, then what we can do is use the crossover solver, and that'll give us a different look. So let me name this here. So one of these crossover solvers is going to look for the CCI to cross the positive 100. So indicator A is going to be our CCI indicator. So we're going to change this to the CCI. Okay, and indicator B section down here, this is actually going to be the 100 threshold or the 100 value. And so we need to change the type. We need to change it from an indicator to a fixed value. So instead of 0, so right now you can see it's set to 0. We can see whenever the CCI crosses the 0 line, right, we're getting a crossover signal. But we're going to set it to 100, like so. Alright, so let's see, right now we can see when the CCI crosses above the 100, it's giving us a buy signal. So so James, I think you want a sell signal there, right? When the CCI crosses above 100. So if you want this sell signal to become, if you want this buy signal to become a sell signal, then what we have to do is change the outputs here. So you see down here the output section. So we have crosses in direction. So I can turn that off, set it to 0, and then we have crosses against direction. I can turn that on, and now when we see the CCI crossing above positive 100, now we're getting a sell signal right there, right? So you can change this depending on what you actually want, right? So, right, maybe you want a sell signal when the CCI crosses down below 100, in which case it's set up correctly. So, all right, and the last, so one more step we need to do is this solver, we only want a short output from it. So there we go. So now this is only giving us the sell signal, right, where the sell signal for the CCI and the positive 100 value. So now you just have to decide, which crossing do you want? Do you want the crossing above 100 or the crossing below 100? So, so let's see. I'll leave it as a crossing above 100. I'll leave it at that. So, all right, and the next step is, let's grab another crossover solver, name it, and set this to the CCI again. All right, so indicator A once again is set to our CCI, and let's connect that up here. And again, indicator B, we're going to set this to a fixed value, and this time we'll do the negative 100 value or threshold. And let's see, the other solver, we turned crosses in direction off, and we turned on crosses against direction there. And so this solver, right, this crossover is for the CCI crossing negative 100. So we only want to see the long signals from this crossover solver. So there we go. There's a couple of CCIs crossing negative 100. And now the last step here is, hold on a sec. Let's grab a OR node. So we want to put both of those crossover solvers into an OR node. And then we got the OR node connected to the result node. And so now we can see both of the crossover situations. All right, James, so I think that takes care of your question there. If your indicator has what would be a data series that outputs, the MACD swing, or the MACD trend, sorry, not trend, yeah, if your MACD is counting swing points, then if the MACD has a data series that outputs the number of the swing points, then we could actually use it in BloodHound, if it does have that data series. Like for example here, let me just show you what I mean here. All right, so if I grab a threshold solver, and let me load let's see, I think, yeah, I think this SiSwings has some DataSeries. Yeah, it does. So you see how the swings indicator, it has all these DataSeries. So like for example, the swing length, right? So the swing length is the number of bars that a swing lasted. So right, so like on the chart, you've got a low point right here. Hopefully you guys can see my mouse. You got a low point here, and then you got a high point up here, right? So this would have been detected as a swing right here, and the number of bars in that swing is what this data series contains, is that number of bars, and so that can actually be read in BloodHound, you know, and we could identify that. So let's kind of do let's do a little demo. So let's say we want to find swings that are longer than 10 bars. Yeah, longer than 10 bars. So I'm going to put 10 in here twice just to get rid of the fuzzy logic part. And so this isn't going to, I don't think it's going to tell me if it's an upswing or a downswing. So let's connect this up here, sorry. Okay. Alright, let me get the swings indicator on the chart so we can see what's happening. And oh, you know what? I might have my terminology wrong here. So maybe the swing length is actually that's right. I think I discovered this last year. The swing length actually I think is the swing height, the height of the swing. Yeah, I think Dorshan had mislabeled some of these data series. Yeah, swing length. That's right. I think. Yeah, the swing length is actually, it should be labeled swing height. I think it's the swing duration. Tells you the number of bars. The number of bars in the swing. Let's use that one. Yeah, there we go. Okay. That's a little better. So we're looking for a swing that's longer than 10 bars. And so now, if, right, so we have our swing starting right here. Let's stretch this out a little bit. So if we count along, when we get to the 10th bar, we can see that BloodHound's telling us that, oh, our current swing is longer than 10 bars in length. So that's just an example of what you can do with the data series. So James, if you're, I'm sorry, Vittorino, if your MACD could be programmed with a data series that counts the swing, the number of swings for you, right? So that just kind of some custom cool stuff that you can do. So right, let's see. Let me name this here. So there you go. So this is telling us swings that are longer than 10 bars. And just to point out here, right, BloodHound, remember, if we look down here, BloodHound's giving us a long, it's giving us a long output and it's giving us a short output. So the reason why I did that is because counting the length of a swing is non-directional, right? So all the solver is doing is counting the length of the swing and telling us that, yeah, a swing is longer than 10 bars, right? So you would want to use another solver to actually identify the direction of the swing. Which actually I think, yeah, I'm just going to take this same solver, I'm going to make a copy of it. And I'll set this solver up to tell us the direction of the swing. So I just renamed it for now. So let me add that solver on the board. So here's that new solver I just made by copying. And so since I made a since this solver is a copy of this solver, it already has my indicator already set up for me. So all I need to do is open up my indicator. It's already set up, and let's see, swing direction. Let's take a look at this. I think this is the data series that we want. And I need to set my thresholds back down to 0 and set my short output here. There we go. So, right, so to get the swing direction, all right, so when you're working with the data series, right, you have to know from your programmer what values are in these data series, right? You know, so because you can't see what's in these data series. This is just kind of a hidden information that gets passed from one indicator to another indicator, right? So these data series, you can't actually see them on the chart. So you have to know from your programmer what kind of values would be in each of these data series. And so, for example, this swing direction, I know just from experience that the swing direction, it's going to contain a positive 1 when the swing is in a up direction, and it's going to contain a negative 1 value when the swing is in a down direction, right? So when the swing is in a down direction, it'll be a negative 1. And so, therefore, my thresholds are all set to 0, because that data series is either going to be a positive 1 or a negative 1. And then my outputs are set accordingly. So I get a long output when that data series is greater than 0. Remember, A equals 0. Or I'm going to get a short output. Right? I'm going to get a short output when that data series is less than 0. So I set a 1 in here. So when the data series is less than 0, or in other words, a negative 1, I'm going to get a short output. So, and if we look here, we can see this solver is now kind of telling us. So you'll notice that there is some delay, right? We can see on the chart that the indicator actually was plotting an upswing. But what this is telling you is that, okay, this upswing was not known as an upswing until this bar, right? So you can see that this price was just kind of chopping around. So the indicator did not switch to an upswing until we got to this bar here. So that's why this is all red, because in real time this indicator was still in a downswing direction. And then once price moved up high enough, then the indicator moved to a upswing direction. So, all right, so anyway, so back to the original, my original point here, right, is we have this one solver that's just telling us, okay, you know, we've got a trend that's, you know, for so long, but we need to add a direction to it. So I've got another solver here that tells us the direction from the indicator, and then we can AND those two together. We can connect both of them into a AND, and as soon as I connect the swing direction in, now bingo, there we go. So now we know that this swing is an upswing and it's longer than 10 bars in length. Right, and it took 2 two solvers to do that. One solver to count the length of the swing and the other solver to determine the direction of the swing. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. So, all right. So there's a little lesson there on using DataSeries. We'll wrap it up here. So hey, have a good weekend. Enjoy the rest of your Friday, and I hope to see you guys next week.